From a running back who was so fat that he got paid to not eat, to a player that became a criminal. These are NFL players who let themselves go, starting with a running back that was called a fat piece of shit by his own team. After Eddie Lacy shattered his ankle in 2016, he was off his feet for months, and when he came back to play, it showed around the midsection. This is a nicer way of saying he was a bit thick, but not in a thoughty sort of way. His team, the Green Bay Packers, even went out of their way to leak this as the reason they didn't re-sign him. Knowing this, Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll devised the most ridiculous contract in NFL history. If Lacy clocked in at 250 pounds or less at each weigh-in, he would get a $55,000 bonus every single time. Getting paid to not eat too much sounds like the sweet life. But what's crazy is he still managed to mess that up. And dude was out of the league. Hold up, where can I sign up? I only run on Top Ramen and Red Bull on the weekdays. But at least he had a good run, unlike a former #1 pick QB that ended up getting fatter than Eddie Lacy. Now, JaMarcus Russell was a beast in college. He feasted on the competition on his way to becoming a national champion. But that was not the only thing he was feasting on. Wendy's. Now, in no way am I trashing on Wendy's here. Their Baconator is dank. But I'll get back to that in a bit, because not only was the weight a problem, some had doubts about the big guy's drive and work ethic. One of them was the former Detroit Lions GM who cut a pre-draft interview with Russell short because he wasn't paying attention. And that's to the general manager. Dude's already plummeting his draft stock. JaMarcus's problems began before he ever played a single snap in the league, asking for more money on his rookie contract, which he couldn't even back up by throwing more interceptions than touchdowns. From showing up to training camp incredibly overweight, which was an annual tradition for JaMarcus, to having to be bribed with Wendy's Junior Bacon cheeseburgers just to watch game tape. Russell's numbers were also the worst among starting quarterbacks in the 2009 season, finishing behind guys like Brady Quinn. Remember that guy? All of these things got JaMarcus Russell released after only 3 seasons in the NFL. But that's not as bad as falling into a devastating addiction that Vince Young had. By the time Young had finished high school, he was the top prospect in the country and a national champion in college. He was like the Jalen Hurts of that era. Flying pretty high in the 2006 season after making the Pro Bowl for the first time, Vince Young decided to treat himself literally. This is when the Titans QB reportedly spent $15,000 in a single sitting at the Cheesecake Factory. And that soon became a tradition with his regular visits there. That's a lot of red velvet cake. But unfortunately for him, it was a sign of a far bigger problem. A spending addiction. From buying up all the seats on a commercial flight just to be alone, to giving a friend $600,000 for a business that he didn't even know what it did. Young went from over $60 million in salary and endorsement deals to $1.9 million in debt.
Hey yo, what the f***?
Vince Young has had a wild ride.
Always gonna have a drink or two.
And he eventually got his act together, and even started collaborating with Raising Cane's for his beloved fans. But someone who is not as lucky is Antonio Brown, who fell from a Pro Bowler to a failed rapper and internet troll. Was it the hit by Vontaze Burfict, the beef with Big Ben, or CTE that made him fly off the rails? No one really knows for sure. But what we do know is that Brown was never the same again after leaving the black and yellow. His brief time on the Raiders ended with missing practices for not being able to wear his preferred helmet, apologizing to his teammates and fans for his absences, and then, less than a day later, demanding his release from the team. But it gets worse. His next team, the Patriots, playing in a winning machine, had him looking like the second coming of Randy Moss alongside Tom Brady. Except he only managed to last a single game before he was back to being a free agent. Now, one would think that AB learned his lesson after being cut by 2 different teams in as many months. But he didn't. In his last stop in Tampa Bay, the league's resident loose cannon managed to last a little bit longer than a single game, and he even got to link up with Brady again. However, he quickly went right back to his old ways. After beefing with coaches and getting cut in the middle of a game, he then took it to social media and started going after Brady. When Tom tried to get a hold of AB attempting to weather the storm, AB decided to leak the messages. And when Brady was going through a divorce, he really decided to fall off the deep end. But it got even more crazy after making posts insinuating that he was smashing the GOAT's wife. I think it's safe to say they're not on speaking terms anymore. But that's nowhere near as crazy as throwing away a $138 million contract for the dirtiest $100,000 you've ever seen. Back in the early 2000s, Michael Vick was a real-life cheat code on the field. However, it was off of the field where Vick's troubles started. Franchise players like Vick get huge bags and splurge on houses, cars, rims, and jewelry. Mike did this too, but he also used part of the money from a 9-year, $130 million contract extension with the Atlanta Falcons to start an illegal dogfighting ring. This probably isn't what his financial advisor had in mind when he said, "Invest your money." After Vick was raided by the cops, what they found was disturbing. They found evidence that Mike was taking part in and profiting from it by gambling. Who puts a parlay on a dog? I mean, look at these guys. Arrests immediately followed, and rather than face organized crime charges, which would all but guarantee a long time in prison, Vick and others involved all pled guilty, with Mike getting a reduced sentence of 23 months in jail. But it didn't stop there. To no surprise, the Falcons released him from his contract, sued him to get part of the money already paid to him back, and sponsors dropped him like the soap in jail. This led to Vick having to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection with less money in his account than he owed. In the end, Michael Vick did get a second chance in the NFL, and he made the most of it, playing for another 7 seasons. His legacy, however, would never be the same. And me being a dog lover myself, I think the dude got off pretty easy. Now, that whole thing with Mike Vick did get pretty dark, but it gets worse when one QB predicted his own death. Jared Lorenzen, nicknamed BBQ, which stood for Big Beautiful Quarterback, lived up to this moniker every bit. As a hefty 240-pounder when he was in high school, despite his weight, Jared could get around, playing every sport you could think of before eventually committing to Kentucky on a football scholarship. Over there, Jared slimmed down a bit and continued to ball out, breaking multiple school records. Unfortunately, this would be the height of Lorenzen's playing career. Despite going undrafted, Jared managed to sign with the New York Giants as a free agent, but was cut early. Following this, Jared tried to sign with the Colts, but failed to make their roster. This was a sign for Jared to tell himself, this ain't it. But he made one last go of it as the GM and quarterback of the ultimate indoor football leagues with the most ridiculous team logo, the Northern Kentucky River Monsters. By this point, Jared weighed over 300 pounds, but still broke records over there and won the league's MVP award. However, his run was cut short, with an injury forcing him to retire for good. This ultimately sent Jared's life into a deadly tailspin. The game he loved was taken away from him, and his wife even left him. And all that Jared could do now was just try to not overeat to cope with the pain. As a result, Jared quickly ballooned to nearly 600 pounds, which ESPN documented as part of the Jared Lorenzen project, along with his attempt to lose weight.
Not the way I'm going right now. As scary as it is, I'll die in 5 years. If I didn't wake up tomorrow, it wouldn't be a shock to many people.
In the end, it proved too much to overcome, and Jared never got a chance to finish his weight loss journey as heart and kidney problems, all from his weight, caused his early death at the young age of just 38. But seeing a QB like Jared making plays at that weight and still trying to get back in shape till the very end can't help but command just a little bit of respect for the guy.